The AI productivity trap. Why one worker could become worth more than five. What if AI doesn't take your job, but makes your company realize one person can do the work of five? That sounds like a productivity miracle, until you realize what happens next. Because when one employee can suddenly produce twice as much, the value of every other employee doesn't automatically stay the same. And that could change the job market in a way most people aren't watching closely enough. For years, the fear was simple. AI will replace humans. But that might not be the most important story. The bigger story could be this. AI makes some workers dramatically more productive, while making other workers easier to replace. Think about two employees. Same company, same salary, same 8-hour workday. Employee A does everything manually. Research, emails, reports, data analysis, presentations, routine tasks. Employee B uses AI to handle the repetitive work. The AI researches, summarizes, organizes, analyzes, drafts, and automates. Employee B still makes the important decisions. But now, the same 8 hours produce far more. At first, the company is happy. More output, faster results, lower costs. But then management notices something. Why hire another person when one employee can handle more work? And that is where the economics change. Companies don't ultimately pay you because you worked hard. They pay because your work creates value. If technology allows one person to create more value, that person can become extremely valuable. But the opposite can also happen. If AI can handle most of what another employee does, that employee becomes easier to replace. And suddenly, the competition isn't simply human versus AI. It becomes human with AI versus human without AI. That difference is enormous. And we're already seeing evidence that AI is changing productivity and the skills companies expect from workers. PwC's 2026 research found productivity growth is substantially higher among companies more exposed to AI, while AI-exposed roles are changing their required skills much faster. But here's where this gets even more interesting. What happens to the money created by that extra productivity? Imagine a company used to need 10 employees to produce a certain amount of work. Now AI allows 6 employees to produce the same result. The company saves money. But where does that money go? Higher salaries? Lower prices? Bigger profits? More investment? More dividends? Or simply more money flowing toward the owners of the business? That question is bigger than AI, because productivity has always created this tension. When technology allows fewer people to produce more, someone captures the benefit, and ownership matters. A worker earns income from their labor. An owner can earn from an asset. And AI is turning technology itself into an increasingly valuable asset. AI models, software, data, chips, cloud infrastructure, data centers, platforms, businesses built around automation. If those assets become more productive, their owners can potentially capture part of the upside. But don't misunderstand this. This does not mean AI automatically destroys jobs. Current evidence is much more complicated. Stanford researchers say AI's overall employment effect is still relatively small and uneven, while productivity effects are generally positive. That's actually what makes the situation more interesting. The transformation doesn't have to look like millions of people suddenly losing their jobs. It can happen quietly. A company stops replacing employees who leave. A team gets smaller. A junior position disappears. One employee gets promoted because they can manage dramatically more work. A new hire is expected to already know how to use AI. Nobody announces a revolution, but the expectations change. And over time, the entire career ladder can change. Think about entry-level work. Traditionally, beginners start with simple tasks. You research, you organize information, you write basic reports, you perform repetitive work. Then you gain experience, then you make bigger decisions. But what happens when AI can perform many of those beginner tasks? The first step on the career ladder becomes smaller, and that creates a strange problem. Future workers may need to develop judgment before they've had years to develop it. So the most valuable skill may not be knowing how to do every task manually. It may be knowing what should be done in the first place. That changes everything. Basic execution can become cheaper. Judgment can become more valuable. Strategy can become more valuable. Leadership can become more valuable. Creativity can become more valuable. And the people who know how to combine those skills with AI could become extremely productive. One person, one laptop, a few powerful tools, and suddenly, a small business can compete with a much larger company. A creator can research faster. A marketer can produce more campaigns. A programmer can build faster. A consultant can analyze more information. A business owner can automate work that once required an entire team. That is leverage. And leverage is one of the most powerful forces in economics, because wealth has never been created only by working more hours. It is created by finding ways to make each hour more productive and then owning something that benefits from that productivity. That's why there is another question you should be asking. Not, will AI take my job? Ask, how much more valuable could I become if I used AI better than the people competing with me? That question changes your strategy. Because if AI makes average work cheaper, you don't want to compete by becoming more average. You want to move upward. Learn the tools. Understand your industry. Build judgment. Build communication. Build creativity. Build decision-making. Then use AI to multiply those abilities. And there's one more step. Don't just use increased productivity to earn a bigger paycheck. Use it to build something you own. A business, a product, an audience, equity, investments, intellectual property, assets. Something that can keep creating value even when you are not personally working every hour. Because earning more money is one game. Building wealth is another. And AI could make the difference between those two games even bigger. The people who only sell their time may become more productive, but the people who combine productivity with ownership could capture far more of the upside. So maybe the AI revolution isn't really about humans versus machines. Maybe it's about leverage versus labor. The person who uses AI can potentially do more. The person who owns the system can potentially capture more. And the person who does both could have an entirely different financial future. So the next decade may not belong to people who simply work harder. It may belong to people who understand how to multiply their work and then turn that productivity into something they own. Because AI isn't just changing jobs. It's changing productivity. It's changing leverage. And eventually, it could change who gets rich. If you want to understand how AI, money, business, and the economy are changing before most people notice, subscribe to Profit Explain X. Because the biggest financial shifts don't always arrive with a warning. Sometimes they arrive as a tool, sitting quietly on your desk.